Hi, my name is Liam. I'm from FTC team 12499 Gear Up. This video is the first in a series of videos I'll be making covering using Fusion, or Fusion 360 as it was formerly called, for the purposes of First Tech Challenge. These videos could also be useful just as a reference for people keeping up their skills in Fusion or looking to learn Fusion brand new, but we will be focusing on use cases specifically for First Tech Challenge. So let's get into it. I've actually been using Fusion for the past 3 years, but I used Onshape before that and Tinkercad when I was super young. So all I can say is Fusion is an easy transfer if you're coming from Onshape or any other parametric software, and it's a super easy starting point if you're coming from a simpler software such as Tinkercad. All right. So first of all, what is Fusion? Fusion's one of many all-in-one CAD/CAM packages. So that's two parts: CAD, which is computer-aided design, and CAM, which is computer-aided manufacturing. CAD is the design part, so that's making the actual model of 3D something that you want to make. And CAM is the part where you program and create a file, which you can then take to a CNC mill or 3D printer and produce it. We'll be focusing a little bit more on the CAD side of this, since the CAM part of Fusion is more intended for CNC mills, not as much 3D printers, which is what a lot of FTC teams are more using. I will make videos on that a little bit later, though. Next part of this is Fusion is a parametric design software. So it's going to be the same as something like Onshape, Inventor, SolidWorks. Those are all parametric softwares. And the best parallel I can make for that is similar to vector files, how they're all based on mathematical equations. Fusion 360 and similar programs are based on drawings and sketches which are constrained and basically solve into mathematical equations. The neat part about Fusion is that it's completely cloud-based, so all your files are saved in the cloud, and what that allows for is really easy collaboration, which is why a lot of FTC teams choose to use Fusion. All right, and who can use Fusion? So Fusion is completely free for anyone that wants to use it for personal use, but there are a couple of features that are missing. You just can't use some of those plugins. I don't think we'll run into any of those barriers during this tutorial series, but there are a couple of use cases where some people might have issues just because they need to access an additional thing. But high school and college students get full access to Fusion for free with all the different plugins and add-ins. I'll show you what that looks like in just a minute when we get into Fusion. I'll also have links to these resources in the description of this video, links to the free download, and to where you can get educational access. All right, let's get into Fusion. Okay, so here is the main landing page for Fusion. It might look a little bit daunting at first, there's a lot going on, but trust me, it's not too bad. So we'll start up here in the top left corner. So here are your Fusion teams. So I'm actually part of two teams. One is my robotics team, so we have one which we have shared amongst all of our members, and then I also have my personal team. You'll see how to set these up when you make your account. So I'll just stay in my robotics team for now, and the next thing we'll look at is this panel on the left. So this is your list of projects. Fusion likes to split things into projects, and teams may use these projects in different ways. The way we do it is we make a project for each year, and then we also have a project to store our off-the-shelf parts library, which can then be derived into other files. So you can see all of our projects from previous years, and I'll actually go ahead and make a new one. I'll name it Fusion Tutorials. So the other thing you can see is at the bottom of my screen here, I have all of my keyboard inputs being displayed here, just so you guys know if I'm using a keyboard shortcut. I won't be using too many today, but that'll come in useful when we get into sketching a little bit later. All right, so I double click on Fusion Tutorials to open the project, and now I want to make a new file. So Fusion is a little funky in that it actually creates a file every time you open the program. It doesn't save it anywhere. So that's this thing called untitled here. So if I know that I'm going to want to save something, I'm actually going to go ahead and save it before I even edit anything. I'm going to save the first version and it's just an empty file. But I'm going to go ahead and click here in my workspace, and then I'm going to press Command S, or that would be Control S on a Windows machine. I'm going to call this tutorial, I can't spell, tutorial 1. And its location is going to be in Fusion Tutorials, but I could also change that down here or create a folder within my project to further organize the files. But I'll just leave it as it is, and I'll go ahead and press save. Awesome. So you can now see I have this file and it is uploading. That's the cloud part that I was talking about earlier. So now anyone who's a part of this same Fusion team can go ahead and access the file, which is really cool. So the next thing to check out is this button here, which is going to be your workspace switcher. So there's a few workspaces which we use most of the time, which is going to be design, render, and then occasionally simulation and animation. The other ones, not so much for FTC purposes, but there are great use cases for them outside of that. So we'll go ahead and start in design. This is a workspace we'll be using most of the time, but it's actually kind of a bunch of things all in one. You'll see up here at the top, it uses a ribbon menu style navigation, similar to Word or Sibelius if you're into music composition. So there's a few tabs up here which we touch a lot, which is going to be the Solid tab, the Utilities tab, and then you'll see once we create a sketch, you'll see the Sketch tab. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. Don't worry about this too much yet. We'll get into it a little bit more in detail in the next video. But then you'll see the Sketch tab up here. So this is most of our commonly used sketch tools will appear in this top bar, but there's a lot more tools than that. So I'm actually going to press on this button, Create, and you'll see the entire list of different create commands that you can use. So there's like 3 different types of rectangles, 5 different types of circles that you can make. May seem daunting, but we'll get through most of these different functions. Hopefully that helps. And you can also see there's a bunch of different tools for constraints and modifiers, all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to go over here. I didn't make anything in my sketch, but I'm just going to press finish. So it'll save that sketch. And now it's in here. It's just called Sketch 1. All right, next tab that we'll touch a lot is going to be the Solids tab. So this is where you'll take your 2D shapes and make them 3D. So that'd be using one of these create commands like extrude, revolve, might want to cut holes into something. And you can see there's a ton more. They're all down here in the create. There's also these modifier tools and some assembly tools. We'll get through all of these later, so don't worry about them too much yet. There's also some inspection tools in the utilities, which I often use. And this is also where third-party plugins will show up, like this gear generator that I use a lot. Okay, let me go ahead and save this. All I did was create this sketch, but that little star up here by the name of the file means that it has unsaved changes. So I'm just going to hit Command S again. And right now it's going to let me add a description. So if I want to be a good Fusion user and let my teammates know what I did in this version, I'm going to say new sketch made. All right. I don't think this is a milestone version, so I'm going to leave that unchecked. And now I'll press OK. Awesome. So once this finishes uploading, I'll actually be able to see this refresh. You can see now here it says version 2. And if I click here, you can see there's 2 versions. Item created, version 1, saved by me. And then version 2, new sketch made. That was the description that I added, also saved by me. Let me go ahead and go back and open another file that we've been working on for a while, just so you can see a little bit more of that. So if I go to last year's folder, or last year's project, I should say, you can see all these folders inside of how we've organized things. If I go ahead and open up the blocker, let's open this file. You can see it in here. This file is nicely textured and it's pretty much finished. It went on the final robot. But a few other things I'll point out here is you can see at the bottom here, this is the timeline. So this is all the different things we did. So the first thing we did was make a sketch. We did some extrudes, made another sketch, more extrudes, fillet, chamfer, another sketch, and another extrude. And that's how we made this whole thing. We'll get into that once again a little bit more later, but just to give you an idea of the workspace look here. I'll also open up this file. This was the V6 hub mount, just to show you what a side panel might look like when there's multiple objects. So to orbit around, I am pressing the shift key, and then I am pressing down my middle mouse button on the scroll wheel and moving around like that. And to pan around, I just don't press the shift key and just move around with my middle mouse button. That's pretty simple. And then I can scroll to zoom in and out. Okay, the thing I opened this file to show you guys is this side panel here. So this is going to be all the different components that are a part of this file. So the little link means that it's actually derived from another file. So I didn't model the control hub or the expansion hub in this file, but I pulled them in from another one. So you can see that link here. You can also see most of the stuff in this file was not designed here, but the hub plate was. You see that it doesn't have that little chain link there. Awesome. So that is the basics of the Fusion interface and a little brief overview on what Fusion is. In the next video, we'll get into creating a sketch, using a couple different sketch tools, and beginning to constrain your sketches to make sure that you're being a good parametric designer. Thanks so much. I'll see you there.